Hey guys, how you doing? This is Tim O'Neill again from O'Neill's Fly Fishing in Norvise. Thanks for joining us. This is our second installment of our beginner to fly tying series that we're doing for Riversage Journal. Last week we talked about some of the tools that you will need, some of the differences between the tools, some of the ones where you should spend some money, and maybe some of the ones where you can save some money. We also talked about the vise and the fact that the vice's number one job is to hold the hook securely. So in our second installment, I want to talk about some of the knots that we use when we're tying flies, and we're going to tie probably one of the most popular flies that should be in every trout fisherman's fly box, fly that's called the green weenie. Was kind of born in central PA. If you're familiar, a gentleman named Charlie Meck is really one of the people who kind of brought it to the mainstream. Great pattern, doesn't really look like anything in the water, but it just catches fish everywhere. So let's get started. Let's go ahead and switch the cameras to the close in one. Okay, so you can see I've got a hook in my Nor-vise. This is a 5XL 2X heavy hook. And what that means, 5XL means the shank of the hook, which is this section right here, is 5 times longer than standard. So if this were a standard length hook, it would end about right here. This extra length on here is the 5XL or 5 extra long portion of the hook. The 2X heavy means that the wire, which is the physical size of the wire that the hook is made out of, is 2 times heavier than a normal hook. So hook selection is very, very important when you're tying your patterns. If you were tying a dry fly, you wouldn't want to use a 2 or a 3X heavy wire hook on a dry fly, because dry flies are supposed to float on the top of the water. You would use a 1X fine, which is a fine wire hook, so that your fly would float. Consequently, if you were tying maybe a big streamer for some bigger fish, you wouldn't want to use a fine wire hook on a streamer, because you're obviously targeting bigger fish. The hook could possibly bend, and then you would lose the fish. So if you have a chance, Google, it's called The Anatomy of a Fish Hook, and it will show you the differences and what all of the 5XL, 2X heavy, 1X fine, and all that stuff means. Don't get too overwhelmed in the beginning. You can go into a reputable shop, or you can contact us and we can help you with your hook selection. But hook selection is very, very important in the world of fly tying. Okay, so the first knot we're going to learn, it's called a jam knot, and this is how you start your thread onto the hook. And if you take a fly tying class, you will hear the instructor say, jam your thread on behind the eye of the hook, or jam your thread on midway down the hook shank. And when they're saying that, this is what they're talking about. So this is my bobbin. I have my thread coming out of the end of the bobbin tube. I will touch the thread on the near side, which is my side of the hook shank. Okay, and I will wrap over the shank 3 times. 1, 2, 3, going towards the back of the hook. Then I will reverse it, and I will go 1, 2, 3 back towards the front. So you go 3 towards the back, 3 to the front, and then you reach up here and you clip your tag end off. Okay, I'll show it again. So take your thread, touch it to the near side of the hook shank, and wrap over the shank. 1, 2, 3. Now you're wrapping over top of this tag end of thread. 3 to the back, 1, 2, 3 back to the front, and then clip the tag end off. All right, I'll show you one more time. This is pretty important. So you got your thread, touch the near side of the hook, over top of your tag end, 1, 2, 3 towards the back, 1, 2, 3 towards the front, and then clip your tag end off. Okay, the second one that we're going to show, and let me just get this up towards the eye of the hook, is a very easy way to do a half hitch. Now, if you remember last week when I was talking about this tool, which is called the bodkin, I said make sure that you get one that has the dimple in the end of the opposite end of the handle. And what that is for, you can take your thread and you can wrap it around and then you can put that dimple right on the eye of the hook and pull this thread down, and that's basically creating a half hitch. Okay, very simple. Wrap it around, pull, and that will put a overhand knot in your thread. These are two very, very important knots that you need to know. Okay, now let's tie. One material for this particular fly, it is medium chartreuse chenille.
The logo.
Okay.
Green screen.
We're going to peel a little bit of the chartreuse off so that you can expose the core. I'm going to start my thread about 1 hook eye diameter back from the eye of the hook. I'm going to tie in right at the junction of the core and the chenille. I'm going to get 3 good hard wraps. And then I'm going to fold the core back, and I'm going to wrap over top of it. And I'm going to take and I'm going to wrap this all the way back to the point that is right above the barb of the hook. So this is going to be the body of the fly. We're going to have a little tail coming off, but we want to get back to the point just above the barb. You wouldn't want to start your fly here, way up here. You want to use the full length of the shank and get it all the way back to a point adjacent to the barb of the hook. Now we're going to put just a small loop in the back of this. Okay, so I've basically just doubled the material over, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab my bobbin, and I'm going to put 3 pretty good tight wraps on here to set my tail. Okay, now I'm going to move the material behind my thread, and I'm going to wrap back to my tie-in point, and I'm going to wrap forward just to a point about 1 hook eye diameter back from the eye of the hook, and I'm going to put a half hitch in it. Okay, I'm going to hang my bobbin on the cradle. If this was a standard static hook vise where the hook doesn't move, and I'll do this both ways for you, you would take the material and you would pass it hand over hand, wrapping over the shank of the hook, and you would walk this material up to the front of the, up towards the eye, and you would want the material to basically touch on each wrap so that you wouldn't see any of the shank of the hook through the material. And you would wrap it up just about 1 hook eye diameter back from the eye of the hook. Now with a static hook vise, that's how you would do it. If you have a rotary vise, and let me unwrap this and then I'll show you how to do it with a rotary. If you have a rotary vise, you would use the rotary function of the vise. Now you got to work yourself around the point of the hook, and where I see a lot of people make a mistake, they will take this material, they'll cock it at an angle to get around the point of the hook, and they will keep the material at that same angle. And if you do that, you can see this kind of ugly spot that you get right here at your tying point. So what you want to do, you want to wrap this around the eye of the hook, and then you want to bring your material back perpendicular to the shank of the hook and cover up that ugly spot, and then just spin the vise and walk this material forward. Don't crowd the eye of the hook. You want to give yourself a little bit of area so that you can build a head to finish it off. Okay, now I'm going to bring my bobbin, and I'm going to do 3 wraps behind the material. And I'm going to fold the material back, and I'm going to do 3 or 4 good tight wraps in front. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to clip this off. Now I'm just going to use my thread and build up a nice little compact thread head. Make sure you don't have any material trapped in the eye of the hook. Okay. And now I'll take my bodkin with the dimple in the end, and I will put, now typically if I'm doing this, I'll do 3 of them. Do 3 good half hitches. Come in here with my scissors. Clip my thread off. And that's how you tie the green weenie. Fly that should be in every trout fisherman's fly box. All right, guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, tim@nor-vise.com or tim@o'neillsflyfishing.com. Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of your week.